the search for a post-holiday fun filming environment is on. Not that I thought my filming environment in front of my plaid couch was necessarily the best, but I did like it, and we have a pretty small apartment out here, so I thought maybe the fireplace would be a nice backdrop, but it looks so plain. So follow along in this video as we add more craft back here. Thought I would do another cozy mystery battle royale, but have more serious terms and have more books this time. So I have 4 books. I have In the Company of Witches, which I'm pretty excited to read. I actually got this the day after our wedding. It seems like the perfect fall vibes, and I meant to read it, but I didn't. I tend to prefer cozy mysteries that have a little bit of a touch of magic in it, because I think I've talked about this many times before at this point, but when you have a bigger world with more things going on, if the writing's not that great, at least there's more to pay attention to. Chen by Vivienne Chen. And I think I did read the first chapter of this one because I did film an intro for this video that I never ended up making or reading. I think I read the first 4 pages of this one. But this follows a woman who is having kind of a, instead of starting a new business, she is having a, like, before she, like, Stella got her groove back in, she's, like, going back to her family dumpling shop, and she is feeling very downtrodden. She has a heartbreak, all the normal suspects. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It does seem like we have the common trope here of her father is suspected of the murder, or the restaurant itself is suspected of, like, causing the problem by either not taking, I believe it's, yeah, I'm not taking an allergy seriously, which obviously is, like, death of a business here. And I'm pretty excited for this one. Again, I definitely tend to prefer the modern ones. But I have 2 other options here. This is Faint of Art, which I ordered off Thrift Books. This is by Haley Lind, but I did some research, and this is another one of Juliet Blackwell, who wrote my very favorite cozy mystery series, Pen Names. I don't know, it seems like it's, like, a well-known fact. It's, like, listed on her website, so I don't think this is, like, a secret by any means. And this is called Faint of Art. It's an Anna Kincaid mystery, and I'm pretty excited about this. If you didn't know, I was an art history major, and I always love having my own personal interests represented in the cozy mysteries. This one also takes place in San Francisco, which is where the witch ones take place that I really liked. And so I'm pretty excited to be a wine, not a wine snob this time, but an art snob with this, and just see if I like other of Julia Blackwell's writings, because I think that the other one, my favorite series, is that I think it's 13 stories. I haven't seen any other rumblings on her site about, like, when the next one will be published, and it's been over a year, and usually the cozy mysteries are published, like, year after year. Not to be rude about them or anything, but they're usually pretty quickly published. A little bit older, but like I said, I have enjoyed Julia Blackwell's writing in the past. If you took AP Art History with me, maybe you guys remember how we got that wrong, and one of the practice tests we took, one of the essay questions, it was, like, so obviously meant to trick you into thinking it was Caravaggio because of the lighting, and it wasn't. But yeah, Caravaggio was not one of my interests of study in college. Pages, so 100 pages, and I will say, give or take, like, if a chapter is going to end at 304 or 104, or if a chapter is going to end at, like, 99, I'll do it there so it's a nice even stop. But about 100 pages of each one would be a third of each one, which would be a pretty easy way to check in. Just let me pose. It's also so fucking cold in the Midwest, let me tell y'all. It's bone chilling, and it's never ending, and me and this beanie are gonna be together till the end of time. Anyways, bye y'all. Okay y'all, so this is a little bit of an update for you guys. It's been 2 minutes. For me, it's been about a couple days. This thing on my face I have now made very angry. I wore one of those pimple patches with the needles because it wasn't quite to head yet, and then Aaron and I, today was our 3-month wedding anniversary. Very cool. You know, if you guys need any tips on marriage, let me know. And we went to a backgammon meetup, which was pretty fun because we both played backgammon. I came back and it was ready, and it popped. Such a good pop too. and now it's just irritated on my face. And yeah, so I was like, oh, I should film the update now because, you know, I look cute, I just washed my hair, and then I realized I do have a big fat zit on my face, so doesn't even matter if you're almost 30, you still get zits. But I have read Death by Dumpling. Well, I read the first 100 pages of Death by Dumpling, as is the challenge. This book, I think I mentioned to you guys, I thought might be a little bit better because it is a newer book, and so you're not as trapped with some of the very like, this feels like this was written in 2007 tropes. Like I said, with Faint of Art, like she doesn't like phones, and she's like, she just is, you know, that kind of girl. You don't have that in this book. We have Vivian, who just went through a really terrible breakup and essentially is back at her parents' house, or back working at her parents' restaurant, living with her friend, and she's just like trying to get her life together, which is a pretty common trope in these books. Usually somebody is like a hot mess express because of X reason. It usually has to do with like a pretty substantially bad like divorce or breakup, or like running away from like a bad job or something like that. Her family lives in Cleveland, which is probably one of the bigger cities these books take place in. Usually they take place in like no-named small towns. San Francisco is by far the biggest city any one of these that I've read has taken place in. But Cleveland is actually like pretty up there. It's probably like San Francisco. I read one that takes place in Denver, and then Cleveland, shockingly of all places. She works in her family's restaurant, and she works in this area called the Asia Village, which is a very big setup and community for a lot of immigrants from all over. There's immigrants, not just Chinese immigrants, but her family runs like a Chinese restaurant. All sorts of Asian immigrants, and there seems to be some issue because rent prices are being raised, and the man who owns these like the village square is raising rent, and then he dies, and he dies from a pretty severe like anaphylactic shellfish allergy, which is a very serious allergy, and they had just gotten takeout food from her family's restaurant, and that's affecting the restaurant, which is why she's in trying to figure out who did it. I think that this book is good. There's two things that can go wrong. Well, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in Cozy Mystery, but two things that I notice a lot is we don't have characters. Like, we have that establishment of like, everybody doesn't want to talk to me, so the main conflict in the book is not solving the murder, but it's trying to get people to talk to me, which is like not something I want. And like I said when I read the first 100 pages of this, is we have a pretty good reason why people would talk to our main character Annie and not talk to the police, and people want her to be figuring it out. The main character here, Vivian, is motivated because she doesn't think the cook of her family's restaurant did it, and she wants to clear her family's name and figure out what's going on. So she has great motivation, but a lot of the characters, it's not like the characters are more likely to talk to her. But this book, I think, is suffering a little bit from and then we did this, and then we did this, and then we did this, and it really makes me feel like I am reading a book versus like following engrossed in a story. We're doing a lot of, and then I went to work, and then my friend wanted me to go out, so I went out, and then the next day I did this, and then I stopped by this, and I don't really have a way to make that go away so much, because one, we're dropping into the world and we're trying to explore it in a way that feels natural, and of course the way that feels natural is following our main character around. But I do think there is maybe like a more skillful way of doing it, but I am enjoying this story. We are trying to buy some very interesting, fun, very obvious, like some stereotypical characters. You have the older women that know all the gossip in the town, and they're figuring things out. We have like the mom who always wants her daughter to like be married and have like kids and like get it together. We have an older sister who's perfect. We have a like lovable dad. Like, these are all pretty classic characters. Like the gossip eater, like all those people are pretty common in this kind of shape. Or in this kind of story. It's going okay. I would say, like, I can probably tell this may not be my favorite one that I've read. It's probably one that going forward, I mean, it could change, Going forward, if I finish it, I probably wouldn't buy it the next book, but I would take it out on Libby. I have finished the first 92 pages of Faint of Art. Like I said, I would try to get as close to 100 as made sense, but I wasn't going to stop in the middle of a chapter, and this next chapter is quite long. So this is the book that is written by Julia Blackwell, just a little bit, which is one of my absolute favorite cozy mystery author. But it's a much older book, and I think that there are certain things that can happen in like the older cozy mystery tropes that I tend not to be a super big fan of. But we're about 100 pages in, and I'm liking it so far. So there's a couple things here. Our main girl, Annie, she was like a child prodigy for being really good at copying old masters' artworks. She got into a bit of trouble in her teens, and her grandfather, is a famous master art forger. But she has left that behind after some issues happened with her like first internship as a teen, or as like a fresh out of college student, and she basically does interior design for specifically like faux finishings. Here are a couple things that I find interesting in concept. Like I said, I was an art history major, so this one specifically appealed to me because of the author and also the content. Annie and I have differing views on what makes good art. She's a lover of the old masters and thinks anything past Impressionism is stupid and easy and boring, which is so funny for somebody who is famously related to people who are art forgers. And what is the value of work, which is a kind of an entire movement that Dada was trying to do. Why are these pieces actually worth so much money? Is it because we say they're worth so much money? Is it because they're in a museum? Like, what's going on? I think that Annie, for me, is not the most developed character. This is the first in the series, but she is really hung up on the fact that her grandfather is an art forger. And I think that there is some weird, interesting leaps here in logic. She's supposed to be in her 30s, and she still cannot get over the time that she spent one day in Parisian prison with no charges brought against her because she got caught forging art at 17 years old. This cost her a job as an art restorer in a museum when one of her rivals revealed it, but also means that she's been exiled from the art world. But she's chasing art forgers who are known to do their restoration work with other museums that know her grandfather. So I find it a little bit like how come you're the only one who seemingly had one run-in with the law that really shouldn't even necessarily be like a big deal because it happened so long ago? You basically spent a night in jail. Like, it seems odd to me, honestly. The logic there doesn't always pan out, and I feel like I get a little bit annoyed with her very rigid sense of morality about certain things, and then also her not understanding how some things are different. So art forgery is a thing, but one of her rivals at the museum, who is now like a lead restorer, but they started as interns together, this rival, I think her name is like Olivia or something, stole pieces from Annie's portfolio that showed how good of a restorer and replicator she was, and put them in her portfolio to get accepted. And Annie was like, I don't really see how that's any different than, and I was like, girl, that is in fact different. And it's so very clearly different, because if you got into something based on the merit of what you were able to do, and somebody took your work to show their merit, then that is in fact different than, like, I was like, I feel like these are very different. But that's not to be just complaints. These are some like fundamental things that I'm like, I don't know how much I'm loving. Of course, it's so absurd to me. Very early 2000s. She also like doesn't have a cell phone, never has it on her, lets it die all the time. That's a classic I'm not like other girls thing. I will say there's not a ton of that in this. Like, this is very readable. There's not a ton of this like weird body shaming of herself, or like, I don't like myself, I'm not perfect. Doesn't really seem to matter so much about her like love life, so I'm into that. And one thing that I really love that I think Julia Blackwell does really well is we set up the stakes for why our character should be solving the mystery, not just because she's nosy as fuck and why people would be willing to talk to her. She has connections in the art forger world, and they wouldn't talk to the police, but they might talk to her, and multiple different art dealers have been involved in some of these shady dealings, and they're offering her some money to find out what's happening to it, and she has a reason, like these people have a reason to talk to her over the police potentially. And so I think that having that motivation is pretty nice. Again, it gets rid of the fake conflict of, oh my god, people don't want to talk to me, because well, then why am I reading this book? And it just makes her a little bit more invested in the story monetarily. So I did mention that the fact that it's not spelled N-I-N-N is my major bone to pick with it. And that kind of remains to be the case. I kind of expected this would be my favorite one prior to reading it because of the magic element. I think really tends to work for me. I also like that everybody is not turning against these people immediately. Just to set the scene, we have 3 main characters that are all witches. I would say it gives like kind of some practical magic, Halloween Town, like the Good Witch vibes. I will tell you guys this right now. I tried to read Practical Magic because Aaron and I watched the movie not that long ago. Well, at this point, probably like two or 3 years ago. And the movie is decent. I mean, the movie is good. The book I DNF'd. I hated it. And I haven't read anything by Alice Hoffman since because she's come out with some books that sound interesting, but I really did not like Practical Magic. Could not get invested. But I think we're going for a little bit of a very obvious Practical Magic vibe here. And also The Good Witch, which is something I reference a lot, even though I don't think it's like in the zeitgeist for everybody. It's a big touchstone for me. So our 3 main characters are Nora, Izzy, and Bryn. And Bryn is the niece of these 2 women, their aunts. And her parents died and they've been taking care of her. And something tragic has recently happened to her. And her aunts are trying to like coax her back into using magic. We don't fully know. I still don't even fully know what happened. We do know her husband died. That's on the back of the synopsis. But we don't know how or why. And she's very adamant about not wanting to use her magic. And she's very much like in this kind of like grief stupor, I guess I would say. They run this in together, and she moved back in with them after her husband died, and then somebody dies at the end. And we're learning about both the magic systems and how magic here works versus say like magic in like other worlds that have magic, and how they present themselves, and how Bryn was a witch who could have she was a witch of the dead, so she could talk to the dead, versus like her aunts who are like a kitchen witch who's like really great at food and intention, and her other aunt who's more of like a nature witch, really great with like plants and stuff like that and animals. So I like learning about that. I like that that's slowly being revealed to us. It's not just like totally being told to us straightforward. And we're getting some building here. It's always fun when somebody not super popular in the town dies, because the town doesn't immediately turn against the proprietor of the business that was owned, because it's not like, oh, I know you 2 had problems. It's like this person pissed off everybody, and it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of rules about like what is black magic, what's magic you can do, and Nora and Izzy, who are Bryn's 2 aunts, clash heads a lot. I feel like in the first 100 pages, I get a great idea of the dynamics of all these characters that are going to be involved pretty regularly with the stories. And we also see what Bryn's motivation is for trying to figure it out. Because one, it's most likely something's going to fall on her family. This happened in the inn. And she wants to know what happened, but also doesn't want to use magic to find out, because she doesn't want to use magic. And so we see her motivation for becoming a nosy detective in town. And I think that is always something that I say I really like. I prefer books that take that approach to it. So I would say out of the 3 of them, I'm most excited to keep reading In the Company of Witches. I'm a little bit more interested in that one. I'm not really sure who could have done any of these murders. I think like I said, I only read 100 pages of each of them. And this is the one that I was sad to put down a little bit more. Next, I would say Faint of Heart. And right now, Death by Dumpling is not my most favorite out of all of them. I don't think it's like the worst one by any means that I've ever read. But out of these three, these two are really stacking up. So I'll check in with you probably when I've read the next 100 pages of all of them. I just wanted it to be very clear the plot points of each of them. So again, hey y'all, it's this is my bedroom, which gives some of the most I feel like the most dramatic framing I've ever had on my channel. I kind of like it. But I'm here to do a quick update on the next 100 pages of my 3 cozy mysteries in my cozy mystery battle royale. So I'm going to start actually with my least favorite one first, which is Faint of Heart, which I feel like if in the last clip I said this was my middle, and I did not really expect this to change. So one, this is by my favorite cozy mystery author, Julia Blackwell. This is one of her pen names, Haley Lind. I think we do have a couple things going on here. This is from 2006, and there is a lot of Not Like Other Girls bullshit happening in this book. Not overwhelming. Like, if it was overwhelming, if it was really present in the first 100 pages, I probably wouldn't have read it. I would have just DNF'd it. But there's enough side comments. There's enough, like, do you like models? No, too skinny. Do you like actresses? What about me? And it's like too complicated. It's like, get a fucking room already. The other thing about this book that I have found more frustrating in the next 100 pages, because I read 100 pages and I read another 100 all at the same time, is that there is so much inner monologue in a way that makes the book fucking boring. Every single conversation this girl has is accompanied by another 4 lines of internal monologue that is just side comments to herself. And then to be like, so to make a long story short, after she made all these sassy comments, and I would rather have that sometimes, not all the time. And I would rather you not make a long story long and then sum it up by saying make a short story short. No, girl, you've already made it another 2 paragraphs by your inner monologue. The other thing here is I think that the scope of this story is a little bit too big. I keep forgetting who people are. Now, part of this probably is on me because I'm not reading the book fully through. I read 100 pages and then I read 3 other books for 100 pages. But usually I'm pretty decent at keeping track of stuff, but there's a little too much corporate espionage. There's a little too much and then this person is secretly, this person is working with this person. You need a flow chart to keep them serious, to keep them straight of everything. Everything's a little too serious. And I will say cozy mysteries tend to get that way when you're 11 books deep into the series, but we're on book 1 and there are so many characters. There's so much intrigue. I don't even think I could tell you who I think did it because I don't even fully understand who everybody is, even though I can kind of think about who did it. Actually, I kind of think I have an answer. So this has slowly become my least favorite. This is the longest 100 pages to get through, and it's the only one out of the 2 that I didn't want to keep reading. I finished the last set of my next 100 pages this morning, and I said, great, I can film the video, and then I can get back to the other 2, because I could give a fuck about this one, which I think our main character is kind of annoying. And there is always a little bit of a disaster girl aspect in the cozy mystery genre. I think that that's just probably the most relatable, but I find her exacerbated because she is just having this more I just feel like she doesn't fully grasp herself and what it means to be 30 years old, and not that that means anything, but it's something she's constantly saying to herself, that she's 33 years old, but she also is so unsure. She's so beaten down by this thing that happened to her when she was 17 years old, and I don't even fully understand what it is because it keeps kind of changing. It seems like she was not just a forger for a little bit with her grandfather. It seems like she flooded the markets with stuff. I just feel like lots of people can flip it and reverse it, and I don't know why she can't. And I feel like she's just so down on herself in a way that is unnecessary too. And I also feel like this book is getting very much more like, let's go here and let's go there and let's go here. And the other, this is the other thing. She's not figuring anything else. She's not figuring anything out on her own. She is finding things and then finding more people that are involved that are confirming her theories or telling her, yeah, we've already been doing that. Like, she hasn't had a moment where she's figuring something out on her own and then, like, we all do it. The only amazing thing that she's been able to do is identify if something is a forgery or not, which is cool, but it's not a, like, oh my god, you're a genius, you know, does that make? And I think that that's the thing that's really frustrating, is I want to buy into our lead characters as clever and smart, and part of them is them solving and synthesizing the information together. And like, I think that that is what makes the cozy mysteries fun, because we're also doing that as the audience, but because our character is so wrapped up in things that don't really matter, that she cannot figure out. And the other thing that's kind of annoying is, in some books they'll be like, okay, it's me, I'm the main character, but I have my friends that help me. That's not what's happening either. It's like a bunch of random men are solving this mystery for her, and I just feel like I'm bored of it. So out of all of these so far, I'd say this is my least favorite. Death by Dumplings, I think when we last did the review, I said I think this one was the weakest. I mean, least favorite. I felt like there was a lot of, and then I go here, and then I go here, and then I go here. And that was kind of frustrating for the first 100 pages, but the next 100 pages have gotten really interesting. So first of all, these two books actually both feature a second death in the middle plot. I don't know if that's, I'm sorry if that's spoilers, that's not uncommon in cozy mysteries, but or a second attempt. I feel like we're getting a little bit more honed in on our suspects here, and also our main character is being able to stick up for herself a little bit more, and the book has just gotten better narratively. So maybe that first 100 pages impression was just me being like, I need to finish this so I can record a video. Although I do feel like the writing has gotten better in the second half, or the second third, and I just feel like our main character is coming into her own a little bit more. She's standing up for herself a little bit more. She's trying to solve this murder because she has a lot of ideas. We constantly are being reminded of big pieces, and not just so that they're being repeated back to us. Her friend is like, let's do this together, let's figure out what's going on, let's help Peter, like, I want to help you, I am your roommate. And so they talk about what they think, and they like are helping us draw the lines, but it doesn't feel forced to me, and it feels like we are synthesizing the information that we're receiving throughout the story, and we are still trying to keep an open mind about who we think did it. Because this is the thing, is like, this book has too much plot right now, where it's like, I don't think I could tell you who did it, and honestly, when they tell us who did it, I don't know if that would be the answer for like, that's the only person who could have done it. This one is helping us really narrow down and think about suspects that we maybe don't want to think about because we want them to be innocent, but like bringing us together on that. We also are getting a more set amount of the characters. So Asia Village has a bunch of different characters in it, that like the book has a bunch of different characters, and Asia Village, where the book takes place, has a bunch of different people that are coming in and out, and there's a bunch of different characters, and maybe people are working together and something big just happened. And so I think that it is it's helping us hone in on that, and it's making the world feel both big but getting smaller. So in the first half of the book, it was like so innocuous, and it was like there's a lot of people, and in the second part of the book, we've narrowed it down. We've made the world feel real and big, but made our book and the characters in our book feel concise, which I feel like that's not happening in this one. So we just keep adding people to the world and changing people in the world, and we're not honing in on anything. It should be like a funnel, right? Like we should know that this is a real world. We should know that this is got thoughts and people have thought about it, and both these books take place in real places. So we just need to flesh out the like part of the books that we're going to see the most, and then we're going to flesh out our suspects and characters, and then we're going to really narrow it in. So each time you pick up the book, there's some familiar characters, but we're adding some to the world, we're adding some characters, and we're bringing it back into the center. And I feel like this is doing a really great job of that, and this is not. And I feel like the writing has gotten a little bit more skilled, or like the transitions have gotten better. Vivian Chen has really masterfully, I think, made people open to talking to our main character. So I like that. So it comes to no surprise that In the Company of Witches is still my favorite. And you know what I just noticed when I was reading it? Is that Julia Blackwell blurbed this one, and as we know, her blurb for this is a fun and compelling mystery, a welcome addition to the magical cozy genre, New York Times bestselling author Julia Blackwell. So I was so excited to see that. I wanted to point that out. This was definitely the one that I most wanted to keep reading. I definitely read more than 200 pages. A chapter was ending and I knew a big event was about to happen, and I was like, I have to read the entire thing. And so I read through the entire town meeting. So I am on page like 215. This is when the story has gotten pretty interesting. I feel like the magic is being explained a little bit more. Our main character is finding out more about her past and also her aunt's past. Her aunt is becoming both more frustrating and more understandable, but our main character is also growing a little bit more of a backbone. We come to meet Bryn in the midst of, like, she's been trenched in grief. Her husband died very suddenly. It was unexpected, and she has been surrounded by grief. And we're kind of coming to her as she's starting to have the cloud lift, which I think is a good place to meet a character. So we're getting a lot of development chapter by chapter, page by page. She's going into town more. She's standing up for herself a little bit more. And she's doing better at solving the mystery. And her whole thing is she doesn't want to use her magic to do it. So she is going on foot and doing it, which gives us a motivation for her character to be doing it. And also a motivation for her not to be using her magic. So there is no, like, magically solving this problem, which I think is it's nice. I like that there's magic in this world, but I like that our main character isn't using her magic all the time because she doesn't want to. The high on Sunday is -10. Like, how cold is that? Like, the high is -10. I don't know how to deal with that. It's so cold here, which makes me so sleepy. Anyways, so the next 100 pages we're finding a little bit more about Constance's family and what may have happened. And then there's this kind of very foreboding snippet we hear of, like, there's going to be a town meeting and this person who thinks your family is evil and bad is going to speak at it. And you get this build up, because that's the other thing too, is like when a book is 300 pages long, the first 100 pages we're getting to know everybody, the inciting incident, the murder, that middle 100 can be kind of hard, I feel like, to really write. And these books really aren't 300 pages. It's because they're so little. I think I one time got like a copy of one of these books and it was like the size of like a regular book. It's like 150 pages. But I think having this town meeting as this middle inciting plot point. So we still have the bigger overarching plot point of solving the murder. We have this bigger overarching plot of, like, the mystery of our main character's family, the mystery of our murder victim's family. Like, that's all into that main plot point. But we know that this town meeting is going to happen. I think really gets you a level of excitement for that 100 pages. And you're not just like, who did it? And the Death by Dumplings also had this middle thing where they were, like, gonna go to this memorial for the character who had died, which again is a great time, one, to get all the characters you want that you think are suspects into a room together and see how they interact. It's a great way to have a middle plot point that can be solved and resolved pretty early, and it's a great reason to keep reading versus saying, oh my god, I have to read another 200 pages to find out who did the murder. It's like, okay, we have a couple things going on which will help give us clues to that, which I don't really feel like this book is doing. I feel like we're just going in cars, driving places to find out a man who has solved a problem earlier than our main character has. So I'm really enjoying these two things. We have a pretty big incident. We're about to kick off the second third of the book with a pretty big kind of problem outside of the murder, which I'm quite excited for. Like I said, this was by far the hardest one for me to stop at those 200 pages. I was pretty excited. I think I have a pretty good idea of who did it. Same thing with this one. I don't necessarily know if I know who did it, but I think I know what the, like, problem was and what the issue was. I don't know if I should be making guesses that I think I can either confirm or deny, because I don't want these to be spoilers, because these are really books that I think if you know them, they're not really that much fun to pick up. But I do think I know who did it in this one. Do I think I know who did it in this one? I think I do. And then I think I know what some of the issues are in here, some of the secrets that will be unfurled, because we are getting a lot of like, not everybody knows everybody as well as they think they lost. So the next update I will have is probably, maybe I'll update as I finish each one, just so I don't have to combine my thoughts like this. And then I'll do one big ranking for them. I hope you guys like this. I think I might have mentioned in my last video that it's like crazy snowing and this week is gonna be really cold, but it's really cold. Like our pipes are frozen right now, so we can't get any. We have hot water, but not in our tub. And we've had like a hot water, like the maintenance people brought us a space heater to try to heat them up, and they have not unfrozen the pipes, but they have melted the outlets. So things are going good. Like, we're gossiping late night at a sleepover. We're not supposed to still be up. So thought it was kind of fun. A little bit. But times. But I have my final thoughts on Death by Dumpling. So overall, I would say this book is a solid B. I would consider paying full price for the next book, which is about $9, which is not really saying much, but I don't normally buy my cozy mysteries full price. I usually buy them used if I can, or take them out on Libby, just because I know they're not books that I tend to like reread. Probably will send this book to my mom. I thought it was pretty decent. I thought that the final third of the book did a good job of letting us piece together some things. The final third, like I said, one of my predictions was right, and I thought they were laying the groundwork for that pretty well. I would say if you weren't an experienced cozy mystery reader, you maybe wouldn't have necessarily picked up on that. But if you've read a lot of cozy mysteries, then you might be able to pick up on that one subtle thing. I don't know if I knew who the murderer was, like, halfway through the book. They were really trying to lay it on thick with, like, one or two people, and I was like, so it can't be those people. I was a little thrown off. There was a little too many. I would say there were almost too many red herrings in this, just because they really wanted you to, like, not know. And there was a pretty good, like, life or death situation, and we already have some dating of the detective, which is a pretty classic in these novels. That's like a classic trope. They're constantly dating the detectives. So we'll see how that goes on. There is, in this book, they include the first two chapters from the next book. I'm interested to see how that would go, because pretty classically, our main suspect here was the chef for the small business, which is normally how our main character will get involved. Although there was a really great third act of like, maybe he did do it, and you're kind of thinking about it and you're like, maybe he did, but they laid the groundwork pretty well. I think if I was really paying attention and really thinking about it, I might have been able to say, okay, I guess it is this other person. I wasn't thinking that hard about it. I like to have my brain off when I read these. So I will, like I said, solid B, would recommend, probably going to give it to my mom, would pay full price to read the next one. Okay, friends, I have some kind of upsetting news. While I was going to go edit my clips for my Cozy Mystery Battle Royale, my final two clips and reviews from the last two that I read, the last two Cozy Mysteries that I read, that I had the most thoughts on, the audio wasn't recording. So I'm double checking right now. I did record the audio for this one. That one's fine. But we'll start with Faint of Art. So this, if you guys, well, you guys have been watching the video, but this was the one I thought I was gonna like a lot. So I was so excited for this one, and it's supposed to be art history. And I'm trying to remember like all the things I said, because I don't want to lose it. I had a hard time finishing this. Like, this was by far the thing that was keeping the video filming process so long, because I just did not want to pick up this book. The first 100 pages I was like pretty invested in, but I think multiple things happen. I think our main character is really unlikable. She is both a not like others girl, but also exactly like other girls. And I think part of that has to do with this being published in 2006. Like, I think there's just some things that you can't get away from. That was like a very big trend. I also found her to be quite helpless. What is nice about a lot of these books is that, you know, a professional young woman is getting herself in these crazy situations, and she's using her own smarts to solve the mystery. And to me, she is constantly getting left in places and just not knowing what the fuck is going on. And I think the ending was incredibly convoluted and I didn't understand it. And I also think I had a major problem with our main character's internal monologue. She is 29 or like 31 in this book, and something happened to her, something happened that she chose to do when she was 17, and according to her, she was only in French jail for 1 day, and this has destroyed her life, and it certainly hasn't. And she, like, I just don't understand the stakes of this world and the stakes that she's holding herself accountable to, because it doesn't make sense. She flooded the market with art forgeries, but she's an expert in art forgers, and so people are constantly coming to her for advice. And I also think she's, like, kind of a huge bitch. Not a very good friend. Like, she doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities. If I'm trying to remember what actually happened, why I didn't like it, is I think a cozy mystery, you should be able to have a good bet of who did what. This story was so convoluted by the end. I could not keep track of what was happening. And to be honest with you, I do not remember anything that happened except for the fact that I was annoyed by it. I'm so annoyed I lost that over. Yeah, I think our main character is unlikable. Her friends are random. And she is not a very good main character because she cannot carry the story because she's so lame, she's so boring, and she's so not in charge of her own life choices. And I think that is something that makes these characters really fun and likable, is that they're inserting themselves in this mystery for a variety of reasons, but they're figuring it out. And I just feel like she's not figuring out. She's along for the ride and is willing to go anywhere with anyone at any given time. And the last like 55 pages or last 20 pages are like, wait, why did it's like that's it. Reminds me of that bit that College Humor did where they made these series of sketches called Heist Night, and the final sketch, I quote these all the time, I really am like a College Humor / dropout girly, and the last one is like, but here's what actually happened, but here's what actually happened, but here, and they just repeat that bit over and over and over again because that's a joke. And that's like what's happening here, except for it's not a bit, it's like super serial. And it's confusing. And so I don't really recommend these. And I would give this one, like, honestly, a D tier. Like, I did not want to read it. Which means In the Company of Witches, which is what I thought would be. This was by far my favorite one. I went and I bought the second book. I paid money for the second book. The last 300 pages, I think or the last 100 pages are really interesting. We learn more about how magic in this world works. We learn more about our flawed character system and our family system. And we learn a little bit more about what happened to her uncle and her family and her husband. And we start to discover more in depth what's going on around her. And also our main character is the one who's taking it upon herself to solve the mystery and using her powers to solve the mystery. She's a witch in this book, and this does really give very cozy vibes. I think great, comfy, cozy winter vibes. To me, I think I've been saying this the whole time, it gives me the vibes of The Good Witch, although the magic is a little bit more explained in this, and I'm really excited to see where we go with the second book, especially because our main character has gotten out of her funk a little bit. Again, I don't have a ton of memory about what happened. I have a bigger memory of like how the mystery was solved and what happened, but of course I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, this is the one that I'm going to continue reading. I bought the second book, and I think I'm just going to do a vlog where I try to read that book in a day and solve mystery and maybe take you to some of my favorite places out here in Omaha. So I think I'm getting down a little bit more about like what I like about certain cozy mysteries, what makes a cozy mystery good for me. And if we had to pick a winner, it would definitely be In the Company of Witches, but I definitely would recommend Death by Dump. That being said, I hope you guys like this installment of Battle Royale cozy mystery. See you guys in the next one. Bye.